You and a coworker step into an elevator. Just the two of you. The doors close. The elevator starts moving. And then suddenly, you hear a loud fart. You know it was not you. So you look at them. But somehow, they are already looking at you in disgust with their hand covering their mouth. For a second, you're caught off guard. So you laugh and say, I guess you needed to release that. Don't worry, this will be our little secret. But they don't laugh. They get offended. And they accuse you of farting. Now, hold on. There were only two people in that elevator, and you know it was not you. So you are not confused about what happened. You are confused about why somebody who knows the truth is looking you directly in your face and trying to hand their behavior back to you. And that is what we're talking about today. In this video, you will learn how people introduce confusion when the truth puts pressure on them, how to identify what level of response the behavior requires, and how to use my simple method code that will give you the confidence to know what the information is saying to you, and when they're just trying to defend that ass. Because sometimes you are not struggling to find the truth. You are struggling to hold on while somebody else confidently denies it. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm No One, a clarity life coach and educator, and I help people understand confusing emotions, behaviors, and patterns without abandoning what they clearly experienced. Because there is a particular kind of confusion that does not come from missing information. It comes from watching someone deny something they know you witnessed.
You ain't crazy, girl.
Before they responded, you were clear. You knew what happened. You knew it was not you. They looked offended, they accused you, and then suddenly you found yourself standing inside their behavior defending your innocence. That is introduced confusion. That event was clear. The confusion began when they needed you to question your relationship with the truth. So let's get a little deeper into this. Let's talk about how to identify this in relationships. But first, let's go back to the elevator. You heard what happened. You smelt it too. You know your body did not produce it. They were only two people there, so you are not investigating who did it. That part is settled. What we're trying to identify is what their response means and what level of response is required from you. Because one ridiculous lie does not automatically tell you everything about a person, but it does tell you what just happened. They created the problem, they realized you noticed, then they attempted to transfer the embarrassment to you. That is the behavior. So, when you know the truth, let the flags guide your response. The elevator example is ridiculous. Hopefully that's never happened to you. But the same reversal happens in relationships every day. They withhold information, accuse you of being suspicious for asking about it. They make a disrespectful comment and then accuse you of ruining the mood when you address it. They break an agreement, then claim your reaction is the reason they could not be honest with you. In each example, you may already know what happened. What you do not know yet is what their response represents. That is where the flags come in. An unclear flag means the behavior occurred, but you do not know yet whether their response came from embarrassment, defensiveness, or a serious attempt to reverse the blame. That moment requires clarification, and you can only do that with a direct answer. Return to the behavior and ask a direct question. Are you saying my reaction caused you to break an agreement that you broke before I knew about it? Their answer should create clarity, not another problem for you to defend. If they avoid the question or become more offended or continue making reactions to the subject, that may become a yellow flag. And yellow means the confusion remained after clarity was offered. So now you gotta watch, you gotta observe. Can they stay calm, return to the issue, and acknowledge what they did? Or does accountability always cause the conversation to move further away from the behavior? When that same reversal keeps happening and it becomes a pattern, the color of the flag deepens and it may be becoming an orange. And orange means this is no longer one defensive conversation. It is a pattern that requires a decision, not another conversation, not more watch time, a decision. Every incident may have a different excuse, but the structure stays the same. They do something, you notice, and somehow you end up defending yourself. At that point, you must decide whether this pattern can support trust. A red flag usually means the pattern is clear enough that another debate will only pull you further away from what you already know. That part is obvious. Red requires enforcement, so you stop allowing every broken agreement to become a trial about your reaction, your tone, or your insecurity. The problem is no longer one lie. The problem is that the confusion has become the price they expect you to pay for remaining connected to you. That is what the flags are for. They do not decide whether the original behavior happened. Sometimes you already know that. The flags help you determine what their response means and what level of response is required from you. When you cannot see the entire person clearly, see the flags. Trust the system and it will tell you what to do next. So let's talk about when confusion actually becomes the strategy. Let's use the broken agreement. You and your partner agree that if either of you communicates with a certain person, you will disclose it. Later, you discover they had been communicating with that exact person. So you say, you agreed to tell me if this happened. They respond, I did not tell you because I knew you would react like this. Now pause. They have not denied the agreement. They have not denied withholding the information. They have not corrected anything you said. They have simply taken your current reaction and used it to justify a decision they made before you already knew anything. And if you are not careful, you will follow them into that very argument. Now you start explaining how you can be calm. You are proving that you are not controlling. You are defending why you asked. You are apologizing for your own tone. You see what's going on? You are now trying to become emotionally perfect enough to deserve the information they already agreed to provide to you. That's backwards. Your reaction did not travel into the past and make them break the agreement. Your reaction came after you discovered that it already had been broken. Their explanation may tell you why they withheld the information, but it does not erase the fact that they did. Do not allow the consequence of their behavior to be rewritten as the cause. That is how intentional confusion works. It does not always mean someone planned an elaborate psychological attack on you. Sometimes the truth simply creates pressure. They don't want to hold that pressure, so they throw it back at you. Now the conversation is about your tone, timings, insecurity, your delivery or your reaction. Everything except the behavior that placed the pressure on them in the first place. They do not answer for the behavior. They challenge your right to interpret it. They do not need to prove that their version is true. They only need to make you uncertain enough to stop standing on yours. And because you are trying to be fair, you start helping them. You ask, did I say it wrong? Was my reaction too big? Am I being insecure? Could I have misunderstood them? And you know what? Maybe those questions are worth exploring, but not as a replacement for accountability. Your tone can be imperfect and they can still have broken the agreement. You can be insecure and they can still be withholding information. You can react emotionally and they can still have lied. Two things can exist at the same time. Your imperfection does not cancel their behavior. That's a trap. They find one thing about your response that they can criticize, then use it to disqualify everything you noticed. Now your volume becomes more important than their lie. Your insecurity becomes more important than their secrecy. Your timing becomes more important than their disrespect. And suddenly, the person who created the problem is evaluating whether you responded to it correctly. So, you ask yourself, was I genuinely confused about what happened, or did I become confused after they realized I noticed? What did I know before the conversation? What new facts did they actually provide? Did their explanation clarify the behavior, or did it only make me feel guilty for mentioning it? Did we address what happened, or did I spend the entire conversation proving that I had the right to notice? Because an explanation that only attacks your perception is not clarity. Sometimes it's just resistance wearing more words. And when you step back from emotion, the reversal can be just as absurd as someone creating a smell and then looking at you in disgust. So, we talked about how to identify the moments. So what do we do about it? This is where we use the code method that I use for my clients. Code helps you stop arguing over what to call the person and choose the response that the behavior requires. Okay? So we start with C, the clarify. Clarify what happened, not the diagnosis, not the secret motive, not the label, the behavior. So instead of saying, you're making me feel like I'm crazy, say, we agreed that you would tell me. You did not tell me, and now the conversation is about my reaction. That is the sequence. The agreement existed, the agreement was broken, you discovered it, you reacted. Do not let the events be rearranged. Return to what happened. What was said? What changed? What agreement existed? And what can both people reasonably verify? Clarification does not mean proving that every interpretation you have is perfect. It means refusing to let the observable behavior disappear underneath an argument about your personality. You can say, we may disagree about why you did it. Right now, I am asking you to address what you did. Unclear means clarify. You need clarity. Once the behavior is clear, observe what they do with it. Do they acknowledge the agreement? Can they admit that they withheld the information? Do they explain themselves without rewriting the sequence? Can they recognize your reaction without using it to erase their decision? Or do they double down? Do they attack your delivery, introduce unrelated complaints, question your memory, become increasingly offended as the facts become harder to avoid? Pay attention to the cycle. You do not only observe how confidently they speak, observe what repeatedly happens to the truth when accountability enters the room. Does the conversation become clearer? Does clarity become harder to hold on to? Yellow means observe. When it's time to decide, we go into a deeper shade when patterns exist. When the same structure keeps repeating, stop searching for the perfect explanation. Decide what the pattern means for your participation. Can you build trust with someone who rewrites agreements after breaking them? Can you resolve conflict with someone who treats your perception like the problem? Can you continue giving access or receiving confusion? You do not have to decide that they are evil. You do not need to diagnose them. You do not have to prove that every reversal was carefully planned. You are deciding what the pattern has earned. Maybe you slow the relationship down. Maybe you stop creating new agreements until the old ones are addressed. Maybe you stop accepting conversations that never return to the original issue. Clarity does not require courtroom level proof. It requires evidence to make the next reasonable decision. Enforcement is where your clarity becomes a standard instead of another debate. You may say, we can discuss my reaction after we address the agreement that was broken. You don't have to agree with every part of my interpretation, but I am not debating the sequence of what happened. Or this conversation keeps becoming about whether I had the right to notice your behavior. I am not continuing this way. You cannot force somebody to admit what they did. You cannot enforce honesty inside of a person. You enforce what you will do when honesty and accountability remain unavailable. You stop repeating the same question. You pause the commitment. You limit the access. You stop making agreements with someone who keeps treating agreements like suggestions. You stop handing your perception back to the person who benefits from changing it. So red means enforce. That is code. Clarify what happened, observe what happens next, decide what the pattern means, and enforce what your clarity requires. Their confidence does not make them correct. Their offense does not make them innocent. Your reaction does not erase their behavior. And their explanation does not become the truth simply because it made you doubt yourself. When you are too close to a situation to tell whether you are missing information or being pulled away from what you said you already know, use my free Flags Clarity Check. It helps you separate what happened from what was introduced afterward. Examine the response, Identify the pattern and determine what color the evidence supports. Then it helps you choose the code response that the moment requires. You can download it through the link in the description, because no one is here to tell you what to think. But somebody needs to remind you, you knew who farted in that elevator well before they made you defend how you smelt it. You ain't crazy. So, if you learned one thing, like this video, it could really help this community grow. And if you learned two things, subscribe and share this video with someone who can also benefit from this information. Thank you for the support.